Welcome to the Real Estate Show. From buying to selling and everything in between. Rochester's home for everything real estate. And now, your hosts from the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. It's Anthony Butera and Jason Mancuso.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 111 of the Real Estate Show. Anthony and Jason here. Looks like you got 21 now, or 12.
Yeah, I didn't
got
work.
the third one for you. Anthony, you look like you just stepped out of a college dorm room.
I did, actually. It's funny you should say that.
Well, that's a story. That's a story we probably don't want to dive into, then.
It's this new internship program I'm doing. It's Title for Teens is the name of the program.
Love it.
It's helping young ladies venture into the workforce.
So it's been nice weather. It's been nice weather. Is this like, do you see any movement where people are starting to look for houses, or just because of a week of nice weather?
I knew it was going to take a couple of days of nice weather to get some people motivated, and it's effective, right? Pay attention when you're driving now. You'll see a lot of like shrubs and like sticks and stuff, people cleaning up their yard. A lot of people just can't get into listing their house until the weather turns. So, you know, it's been a shot in the arm from a motivation factor, right?
Yeah, sure.
Because perfect world, they want to list their home with freshly cut grass and manicured landscaping, and they want to go on the market just like if you were in the dating market, right?
The dating market?
The dating market, right?
Oh, like dating market.
Now, you're getting motivated to prep. You're probably going to get a Brazilian, right?
Yeah,
same thing.
Freshly groomed landscaping.
Manicure your landscaping. So, I mean, we desperately need it. And, I know we put a ton of planning into the topic for today's show, like literally 45 seconds ago when we talked about it. And I think what's really important, because I'm dealing with it on a regular basis right now, is like giving advice to the agents at Keller Williams that are beyond frustrated, as are their buyers, because they just cannot get a house. And a lot of them are, it's like, Anthony, what do we do? Do we just throw in the towel? Do I tell them like, listen, I don't know what to say, it's not working? And my piece of advice is this. Identify the problems, right? Identify what can and cannot be changed. Identify what's out of your control. Identify what's your fault, if something is, and identify what's your buyer's fault. And I hate to say fault, but like you owe it to your buyer to let them know that the way they're going about this is not working and why. So I'll give you a perfect example. I was just talking to an agent that needed some advice around a VA buyer that she has, and they've written a ton of offers. And not only is he VA because he wants the benefit of a VA mortgage, which is like 100% financing, you get a reduced school tax. The main motivator is the buyer has no money, right? Like they can muster up a couple $1,000s. So they can't even put a strong good faith deposit down, and they need the 100% financing. Now, what people have to understand, especially in VA, is as realtors listing these homes, we hate that VA is so difficult, right? And yet it's our fiduciary duty to inform our sellers, hey guys, listen, we have 5 offers, we have 10 offers, we have 30 offers. This VA they're willing to pay the most amount of money, right? So like our top offer is VA. Our second best offer is conventional with 20% down. So on paper, it looks like you can make, let's just say it's $5,000 more with the VA. I am going to advise my sellers every single time to accept the conventional mortgage if the VA consumer cannot cover an appraisal gap of any amount.
Right.
right? So we have to protect our sellers because first off, it's going to take you, it's VA, it's a federally backed loan. It's going to take a while for them to conduct the appraisal and get back to us. You're on their timeline, right? So we could sit here crossing our fingers and find out 35 days later, it's like, it's just appraised $30,000 less. And these buyers have no money to cover that difference. We just wasted all that time. The market shifted. There's way more inventory. So not only do we leave money on the table, we're going to leave even more on the table because it's not worth what it was just 35 days prior, right? So nobody deserves a product more than our veterans, and yet we're legally obligated to inform our sellers of the issues that will arise. The reason VA is very strict with appraisals is because you got to remember, the consumer's borrowing 100% of the purchase price. If they never make a mortgage payment, the federally backed loan has no skin in the game. And when you do a VA mortgage, there's no mortgage insurance. When you do an FHA, yes, it's only 3.5% down, but there's that mortgage insurance policy that the consumer pays for. That allows for the bank, if you were to default after the fact, it gives them 20% play as far as a loss protection goes. With VA, there's no protection.
Yeah, this VA conversation, like as an aside, it's probably what I hate most about this business is that, you know, and sometimes there's a disconnect just because as a veteran, like there's the mindset of like, I've earned this right to use my VA loan. And that's a tough hurdle to kind of overcome, like to get them to think differently about it. But it's just, yeah, you're essentially punished if you're going to use your VA loan product as a veteran. And, you know, you get it for a reason. And it's like we should be rewarding, not punishing. And it becomes a punishment because of the market conditions, but it's just a much more stringent process that doesn't, you know, in competitive situations, there's options that are typically better to use. I think one thing I wanted to go back to, you know, you mentioned like, okay, you know, are the agents advising poorly? Are there issues that are their fault? Are the buyers, you know, at fault with their actions and their logic? And I think I want to comment on, you know, logic being the key word. Like a buyer can bring a lot of logic and analytics and you know, looking at comparables and you know, a lot of thought process behind, you know, what they're prepared to offer on any given property. And that's great. And it's not that that's wrong. The problem is for every one buyer like that, it seems like right now there's 10 others that are just, I don't freaking care. Give me the house. And I don't care about logic or comps or anything. I'll go above and beyond that. And I want it. So, you know, to the logical buyer, which again is a tough conversation to have because it's like, you know, I'm essentially telling you, throw it out the window right now, this given time. What we're hoping for is that things, you know, loosen up a little bit as the spring and summer comes and the inventory increases. But this is the extreme scenario, the extreme conversations that we've been having over the last few months. So
all great points. And like what I explained to this agent, because she's getting attacked at this point, the buyer is taking it out on her, right? So what I explained to her was like, listen, their lack of funds to put down on a home is not your fault. It's not. And you can't turn it into that being their fault, but you need to explain to them that these are the set of circumstances that we're dealing with, right? So I have to, you know, I'm trying to get a house for you guys. My tools are extremely limited. I feel horrible that it's like this, yet right now, if you're like the buyer in that situation, I am telling you to take a breather for 30 days. Yeah. Take a breather, because here's what and listen, I don't know it all. I'm probably wrong more than anybody, but what I feel extremely confident in is that in 30 days time, we're going to be flooded with listings, right? That VA buyer with no money down, they can't compete when there's 10 buyers for every house. Yeah. right? And if I'm this agent, I'm telling them, you're approved for 200,000. We cannot look at anything for more than 150 because you're probably going to need that much money to consider, right? Or we can look at homes up to 200,000 if they've been in a market for 7+ days. Because right now, every listing, it's like clockwork. We're going live today, delayed showings until tomorrow, delayed negotiations until next Wednesday, right? So what that means is there's that period to allow all of these buyers to go in and look at that house. And at the end of that delayed negotiations period, 9 times out of 10, there's multiple offers. That VA buyer has, I hate sounding like this, but they have no shot in hell if the listing agent knows what they're doing, right? Yeah. They don't have a chance if they're stuck in a competitive market. So my advice is, number one, I think a 30-day breather could be good. And at that time, we have to wait until that delayed negotiations period is up. I'll call the list agent and I say, hey, did you guys accept an offer or are you looking at multiple offers? If they are, we have to stay away from that. We should be looking at homes that have been on the market for 7+ days that did the delayed showings and delayed negotiations, right? They sent invitations out, but nobody showed up to the party because they were probably overpriced. And that's what's going to happen in 30 days' time. We're going to see agents that are taking the market we're living in today in real time, and they're going to list homes at the top of today's market. The market's going to change because now we got flooded with listings, and now there's only 2 buyers for every house. So the values are going to go down a little bit, right? It's going to be temporary seasonality, and now you have a fighting chance.
Right. And it's all going to happen quickly, and pulse on the market is key. And as an agent representing a buyer, or if you're a buyer with another agent, you got to, the days of just like setting up a search and waiting for your buyer to contact you based on what they see, like you have to have multiple searches set up. You've got to be able to capitalize on these homes that don't sell and be notified once they hit a certain days on market to be triggered to know, okay, wow, this home's been on for 10 days. It didn't sell. This could be an opportunity. Or, you know, again, your agent needs to be advising you of the example Anthony laid out in terms of, you know, your budget's up to 200. We really shouldn't be looking at any homes that are new on the market if you're, you know, that VA example, or a buyer needing concessions, or just a quote unquote weaker buyer. You know, we got to stay 150, 160, you know, around that range to be competitive at that listing price to go up from there. Now, as another aside, I think it's important to say, like, we don't enjoy this in our business. Like, it's not like we're getting off this podcast and some evil laugh, you know, suckers type of thing. This is freaking miserable for us just as much as it is for you as the buyer. As a listing agent, yeah, sure, it's great. But, you know, working with buyers is, you know, we want things to level. We want things to change. Until that happens, and with us, with our team, we're going to know before anybody else in the marketplace that it is happening based on the listing inventory that we're putting out and getting a pulse for and seeing what's working, you know, 1 week compared to, you know, feeling a little shift the next week. Like, it's that real time that matters in this market and how it's going to play out. You can't just be tuned into the market on March 12th and, you know, assume like, okay, you'll wait and see what happens May 12th to, you know, see how things are going. Like, this is as close to a day-by-day scenario, but definitely week by week. And as we go into these sunnier days here, we'll know more of how it's going to play out. With that said, topic of the day, right, is tips for like getting through this time. And really, I think it's important to say, like, I don't think either of us are painting a picture that is drastically going to change. Like, when we say shift, it's not like it's going to shift in May or June to a buyer's market where it's just the sellers are at the disadvantage and now the buyers can dictate the terms. This is just more of a shift to loosening up a little bit and seeming a little more fair for a buyer right now. So,
Yep.
a lot of what we talk about now will still be in play in the next few months and through the summer. It just may not be as extreme in terms of the dollar amounts that are thrown around, or, even some of the tactics. So,
and my advice to you agents out there is, like, if you're not willing to have one tough conversation up front with your buyers out of the fear of losing them, congrats, you're going to keep them, and you're going to be stuck having 100 unfortunate conversations later in the transaction, right? Like, protect yourself with the right conversations up front, and acknowledge that if it doesn't make sense for them, I'd rather discover it now as opposed to showing them 50 houses and them wanting to write offers, and yet you never let them know, here's where we will be at a disadvantage, right? We're going to be up against the most competitive people. Number one, we're going to be going against cash buyers. Those are the strongest. There's no appraisal concerns with a cash buyer. They could pay what they want, and that the sellers can accept a cash offer. And even if we're more money, a cash offer is going to have a little bit of an advantage in this market. If you are a VA buyer, like, a conventional is going to be tougher to compete against. An FHA is going to be tougher to compete against. So you have to share that data with, you owe it. It's your duty to share that with your buyer, right?
Well,
don't throw them out to the wolves with you're sending them to war with no weapons.
Right. And there's we always talk to our agents on our team to, put yourself in their shoes, the buyers, like, from a couple different standpoints. Like, one, if you're able to have that blunt conversation right off the bat, deliver it with some empathy. Again, put yourself in their shoes. Like, I always tell people, like, look, I realize what I'm about to tell you is absolutely asinine and isn't going to make sense, but I'm doing it for a reason, and unfortunately, it's the reality of my world right now. So I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell you how things are right now and just painted some picture of rainbows and butterflies and unicorns dancing around the market and everybody gets their way, right? Yep. So, that kind of approach. And then again, as a buyer, like, I think if I were just a consumer, a buyer, I'd be so pissed if my agent dragged me through 10 different offer situations and we're losing, and I don't know. That's what agents need to keep in mind. Johnny consumer, they don't know what we're dealing with every day. They just want to achieve the home ownership dream and do right for themselves. They don't really know what it's like. They may even hear or read some news headlines, but that doesn't paint the true picture. So if my agent told me after, whatever, even one offer lost, what the deal is after that, I'd be pissed. They're out. Like, why didn't you tell me that from the start? I love this house. You would have told me. I would have bucked up and done all this stuff that you're advising now, you a-hole.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's true. You need to give them a heads up, right? You can't paint the picture that you're sending them into a lazy river when it's really a wave pool, right? And they can't swim. You have to give them a
wave pool to tsunami.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think we like the what to do. I think we can, like, wrap that conversation up relatively quickly. It's a matter of the cleanest offer possible. And here's what that looks like is, as far as an offering price, it's not going to add up in terms of what the comparable data should suggest. So it all comes down to what you're comfortable with. And we've talked about this a million times on this show in terms of make an offer you're okay with losing, just you're not going to negotiate. Whatever your ceiling is, that's for you to decide. I can show you the data, but 9.9 times out of 10, the house is going to sell for above what that data shows in this market. So up to you there. From there, strong financing is key, because whether it's a unintended consequence of this pandemic and people have saved all this cash by not going out or what, there's more cash offers flying around now than ever before. It's almost like, where the hell did all this money in Rochester come from? But that's what it feels like. So if you have financing, make sure you're aligned with a top tier bank in town. From there, you have to think about your ability to cover, differences in what the offering price is and the appraisal amount, because that's going to start happening quicker than we all realize too. And that shows the seller, like, I don't care what the house appraises for. I'm non-contingent on that. I'll cover the difference with additional cash. If you can't do that from a cash standpoint, understandable, but just, know that's like where you're at a disadvantage. From there, shitty conversation to have, but you're not going to get an offer accepted with an inspection contingency. 95% of the time anyway.
Yeah.
From there, deposit amounts, which are due within the first 2 days after an accepted offer, and go towards your purchase, like go towards the closing at the end of the day, have immensely increased over the last few years, to where, like, the old rule of thumb of $1,000 deposit per $100,000 purchase price amount is totally out the window, and that may as well be $10,000 per 100 now, and even that can be low. So as big a deposit as possible, showing the seller, here's my skin in the game. I'm not going to back out in the 11th hour because I've got $50,000, up in escrow that's essentially held there if there's a dispute forever. Aside from that, there's really no other terms of the contract. You're closing whenever the sellers want, and you don't have any other contingencies.
Yeah. If you want a house and an inspection and a deal, get out of the market, right? So we'll always say, like, you'll hear win or no deal. It's like, listen, it's not going to happen. You can win a house, you can't get a deal. And it stinks to say that, listen, guys, your offer's competitive, and yet I already know where this is going. We're not going to get it because we're asking for an inspection. I hate saying that because you're entitled to it. Yet next time we go through this, if we don't get this house, which we're probably not going to, the next time we go to a house and you think you're interested, we need to walk around. We need to go in the basement. If the foundation looks good and the roof looks good, we're moving forward without an inspection. Because even if we have the inspection and we find a bunch of odds and ends, you can't ask for it, right? So right now you'll see agents will write, well, we're having an inspection, but it's for informational purposes only, meaning we're going to have it, but we're not going to ask for repairs. Well, that's great, but it's still a contingency. It gives you an out to kill the deal, right?
Yeah, I mean, not to hate on agents, but that drives me nuts, because it's like, it's the same thing. It's a contingency. It's an out. It means nothing. Like, it's, it happens all the time, or even verbally, they're just doing the inspection just to get another look at it. And it doesn't matter. You're either contingent or not. We need to know from the start if you're fully vested in this home or not. Yeah. And, fine print here, right? Like, we're laying out a pretty harsh, brash, blunt way of doing things. Like, we present this in a way to where it's like, we're not demanding that you do this. It's just a matter of, hey, here's your odds. Your 5% chance of getting this offer accepted if you're contingent on an inspection. Everything else that we're seeing, 95% of the time, if not more, is non-contingent on an inspection. You tell me what you want to do, but if you can't make sense of that, then it's probably going to be a long road, or not going to work out at all for you. And then again, this is all right now. If you listen to this podcast a year from now, frankly, hopefully it's a totally different story, and kind of more fair for buyers. Right now, March 12th, 2021,
precipice of the spring market hitting and what's going on out there right now.
Cool. Well, you can check out AnthonyCharity.com. Subscribe to the Real Estate Show there. And follow us on Facebook and all that good stuff. Apple Podcast. All right, guys.
Thanks for listening to The Real Estate Show. Find us on Facebook, iTunes, Stitcher, and YouTube. If you're looking to sell or buy, talk to the Anthony Butera team of Keller Williams Realty, Greater Rochester. Visit AnthonyButeraTeam.com.